Good evening and welcome to the ideasmakelove.com conversation, episode 47. This is a conversation about fear. So if you could even start, if you dare, to place one of your greatest fears in the comments down below, I'll get started. Mine is that my life won't leave some kind of legacy. That would be my greatest fear. And we are currently just doing some of the highlights from this book, The Motivation Manifesto, something I absorbed recently and I've gotten a lot out of. And particularly this chapter here on fear is something that's really helped me reframe the way that I look at fear. And instead of being this thing where I need to pretend it doesn't exist and the only fear I have is fear itself and rubbish like that has basically had me be in fear and not realize it, and then therefore be stopped in my world and what I get up to in life because I've had this fear. So there's a few comments that really popped out for me from the chapter. I'm going to mention some of those comments. We'll have a conversation about it. If there's any questions you have, please ask them down below. If you'd like to share your fear or just share say hello, then feel free to do that. Hello Namir and Alex Dickinson, welcome to the cast. So start with this. Attempting to conceal fear as a friend is like forcing a wolf to be a pet. Soon the pet will eat us alive. So I used to, pretend that this whole idea of fear was just this thing that wasn't a phase. It didn't phase me at all. And it turns out that, it did end up eating me alive in many ways because I got stopped so much. Welcome, Anton. Thank you for joining the cast. Let us know your fear, any of your fears, your greatest fear, or maybe just one of your smaller fears. So another comment is almost all fear we experience today and its resultant cowardly thinking and behavior is just imagined social drama created by unchecked mental impulses and conditionings. So in a way, he's kind of saying that fear is imagined, which is kind of paradoxical because, if we don't recognize that we have got some fear in us, we can't actually deal with it. And this is where it's kind of counterintuitive. It's part of us will go, let's just pretend it doesn't exist. But at the same time, it really is created by us. So we have to realize that it's actually created by us to be able to realize that it is just drama that we're making up that's having us be that way. People lose their businesses because fear stops them from changing and innovating. Marriages end in divorce because one or both spouses are too afraid to open up, to communicate, to be vulnerable, to be sexy or honest. So this sort of confidence, almost arrogance that can come about by pretending we don't have any kind of fear, it really does get in the way. And it has for me. Tell me if it has for you. So fear or freedom wins? Will my life be about aversion or ascension? So aversion, the former, is a life motivated by fear, a small life that turns from hardship towards short-term safety, self-protection, and egotistic ease. The other, which was the ascension, is a life motivated by freedom, a reason to act from our true humanity towards long-term growth, authentic self-expression, and enlightened effort. This is one of the cool things that he brings home in the book. Is he's very much about actually embracing struggle. And something I've been doing in my last year is, instead of trying to find the easy path, the path that just has me and my life be as cruisy and as responsibility free as possible, that actually isn't fulfilling. It hasn't been fulfilling for me. And believe me, I've been to the extremes of not having to do anything, not having to have any kind of responsibility, having it all offloaded onto somebody else, and then just receiving my income and having my time to do whatever I want. And that's been missing this sort of growth, this struggle, and facing my fear, which is really facing my fear of growing big and doing some amazing stuff in the world. So, welcome Yoko, Cassandra, and Kerry. Let us know your fears if you dare to share. Who's going to be the first person to dare to share their fear? That is the question. All right, so from there, he goes on to bewaring of certain people. So when it comes to fear, he mentions that there's three types of people. There's the people to look out for. There's the warriors, as in WORRIERS, the weaklings, and the wicked.
So those are the 3 W's to look out for when it comes to conquering our fear. So the warriors, we must learn to hear doubt, worry, and anxiety with great acuity. We must not integrate other people's fears into our own decision making. Those people who've done that, these warriors have favored cautioned reason as their shield of choice in protecting us. Okay. I'll say the last 2, and it's great to hear from Anton. I'll address that in one moment. So the weaklings, so these are the resigned, the miserable few who long ago gave up their power so that they might be absolved of the responsibility of living a remarkable life. How does that feel hearing that? I know it kind of gut punched me when I first read that line. And lastly, the weaklings. I'll continue on from the weaklings. We must remember that most cynics and judgmental tyrants who seek to oppress us are small, frustrated people who take the heat off their own apathy and failure by labeling us as narcissistic strivers or undeserving fakes. Should they be asked about their own contributions, they generally fall silent or lash out in incoherent or meaningless diatribes. Does that sound familiar to you? Does anyone in your life sound like one of these so-called weaklings? And let us choose a life of strenuousness, taking pride and finding honor in our struggles and our contributions. Welcome, Higo. Before I go into the wicked, I'm just going to address Anton's mention here. I think one fear I have right now is that my bad habit of procrastination will end up making my life so much less than it could have been. Well, yes, and it is just a habit. That's the cool thing. I've been working with my clients actually on helping them reestablish powerful habits. And one of the most powerful things is to even not see it as a habit, but to see habits as being a privilege. Like I've even renamed my system. I have a system for instituting good habits every day because I believe that it's the things that we do every day that actually make us who we are. They are pretty much who we are, right? We are kind of what we do. We can say we are what we say, but still saying something is still doing something. So really, we are what we do. And so, yeah, I can see why that would be a fear for you. Thank you so much for being the first one to share your fear, Anton. That would have taken a lot of courage. Well done. And lastly, I'll just cover the hello, Higo, coming on board. How you doing, man? Just say how you guys are. Maybe just get a bit get conversational. I'd love to hear from you. I see you all online. There's a whole bunch of you there. So just love to hear how your day's been, even just some kind of connection so that I can create conversation around this. As much as I love talking to the camera and connecting with you guys in this regard, I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, even challenges if you have them. So lastly, the wicked, the third W. So again, there's warriors, weaklings, and wicked. They're the people to look out for when it comes to fear. To the wicked, to these tyrants, we owe nothing. Our success lies not in their destruction, but in our own advancement. Not in the astonishment. It's in the astonishment of their faces not in the astonishment of their faces as we surge past them, but in the joy in our hearts at having prevailed despite them. So there's an interesting Freudian slip I just made there. So yeah, I definitely am sometimes motivated by a bit of a darker energy of wanting to prove people wrong and, just say told you so to people and having done it that way. Thanks, Higo. Let us know your fears, man, if you like. And so, yeah, this is an interesting point when it comes to, having people who screw us over, people who really hurt us. We don't need to fear those people, and we don't need to actually seek to destroy them. In fact, resentment is poison. That's one of my favorite points in life, is that I don't choose to be resentful. I'm pretty proud of that, because if anything, from selfish reasons, all it does is make me hurt myself. So yes. Hey, Kerry. Nathan said I haven't changed since I was 16. Well, this little bad boy here actually gets me to not be carded in clubs anymore. I was getting carded up until the age of 30. Everyone thought I was still 16 or 17. So thankfully this little bit of fur on my face is helping me with that. But thanks, Kerry. I'll take that as a massive compliment. And just a couple more points on this cast before we finish up. This is your chance, guys, to ask any questions or mention any comments about fear. Any questions you have for me at all around conquering your fears, I would love to help you with that. So, most of the fear we feel in life is simply anxiety arising from our anticipation of two kinds of pain that change might bring. So the first kind of pain is to do with loss. So if you look at fear, it literally does, and I did definitely meditate on this myself, it seems to really fall into these two categories, right? So you've got the pain associated with loss or hardship. Right? So if we recognize that most fears are in these two categories, we can actually address these fears for real and have them not control us anymore. So think about it from that perspective, and maybe even comment on whether you think your fears are based in a lot of them are based in this fear of loss or in actually addressing hardship. So. And a couple of last points here. The more we look for, this is a cool thing. So one of the ways, how do we deal with fear? How do we actually, have this fear dissolve? Well, the first thing is to not actually pretend it doesn't exist. So strangely enough, looking for evidence for fears, right? Like real tangible evidence for fears. The more we look at that, the more we realize that those evidences that we've found are actually quite faulty or quick assumptions of generally tired or undirected mind. So if we can choose to actually focus our mind step by step, right? Like this doesn't happen overnight. For me, when I was building my habits, it involved like literally every day writing down, here's my gratitudes, here's the things I'm doing every day, and just like focusing my mind towards those ends. A lot of my fears dissolve just naturally. I don't have the time for them, frankly, but like a lot of them will dissolve by just focusing in the right area and not coming up with these faulty or quick assumptions. And if we do come up with those assumptions, then sitting with them, not letting them sit there and dominate us, not pushing them down so they don't exist, but actually sitting there and being with those fears, feeling into those fears, and then once we felt that fear as being real and alive, then looking for the evidence using our logic to go, okay, is this fear legit, or is it just me coming up with a quick answer that means I don't have to deal with hardship, I don't have to deal with struggle, and I don't have to potentially lose this thing that I might lose, right, or fear losing. And as we develop ourselves more and we learn to deal with loss and the fact that this is a transitory plane and this stuff's over in a blink of an eye anyway, and we don't know what's on the other side of this life empirically. So why sit there and feel that fear and have that control us? Lastly, the last point he brings up in here is we can choose the courage to put ourselves in the vicinity of the things that we fear over and over again until we grow more comfortable and then confident. So you might fear baseball, right? Like the first thing would be to put ourselves on the side of the baseball pit and actually be watching the game and interacting with the game. Next would be to walk out onto the field. Like there are very practical ways, and I want you to think about your own life and the fears that you have right now, and what around your fears could you actually take a step towards, right? And just not even like charge full on at, right? But just sort of inch towards, sidestep towards, be in the vicinity of things around your fear, so that you can first off get comfortable and then eventually get confident. So that's it in regards to fear. Thank you guys for coming on board, and I welcome you all again sometime. Feel free to subscribe or click notifications so you learn and know when the next episode is on. Basically, I'll also check out www.ideasmakelove.com, and you can check out the YouTube channel. That's a much easier way of getting through. Love all your faces. Take care, and peace.